We go to the Twitter account, guys, of Doug Clausen. I'm sure many of you saw this on Cowboys Twitter already today. He's got the top 6 teams in rush yards all made the playoffs for the first time in NFL history, that being Baltimore, Philadelphia, Washington, Green Bay, Tampa Bay, and Detroit. So almost half the playoff teams, the top 6 rushing teams in the league. That's not just a coincidence, is it? You know, I think the league has made it a point to stop the big plays in the passing game, and maybe the pendulum swung a little bit too far, creating a hell of an opportunity if you have, you know, what it takes to run the ball. It was a pretty big advantage, you know. So that's what happened. I think the key now is, you know, figuring out, is that going to continue to be the case for the foreseeable future? What do you guys think about this story?
Yeah, you know, if you look at Buffalo is on a heck of a streak right now for not allowing a pass of over 20 yards, air yards, like 40 straight games that they've been on. And I think the Packers
20 air yards?
Yeah, 20-plus air yards, yeah. And they've been on quite a streak. I think it's 40 games. I think I saw that. And I think the Packers are second when it comes to that. So it's a pretty significant thing considering how teams make big plays in the passing game nowadays. So, yeah, these teams are having to try and kind of figure out other ways to move the football. And, you know, maybe for some of these, you know, I think this goes back to the offensive lines getting bigger, maybe your defensive lines being smaller, and people are kind of like going to that. That's just a little bit of an easier way for them to get some yards and then kind of get their passing game going once they're staying ahead of the chains.
That's a good point.
You know,
yeah, go for it, Gavin.
No, Zach, go ahead. I'll talk to you.
Well, I mean, it's all about getting to the passer, right? So if the trend's going to go one side where now everything's pass heavy, as a defense, I'm now building to stop the pass, and I want to be able to get guys that are quick and can affect the quarterback. And I'm going to go ahead and counter that with, let me run the football on you, right? We've talked about lighter boxes, smaller defensive players, but I think like it did kind of swing too far one direction with the running backs. Like even if you look at the Super Bowls, Isaiah Pacheco's been very important for the Chiefs in being able to run the ball. Damian Williams was very important in their first Super Bowl for the Chiefs. Leonard Fournette with Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. Like, I understand maybe, you know, the amount of money you're paying, et cetera, all that fine. But being able to run the football, and if you are a good running team, that is going to equate to wins. That will never change, ever. In football, at any level. If you can run the football and you can play defense, you will be a successful football team. So it's not surprising. And then also for Josh Allen, James Cook, right? He's been fantastic for them. Also probably a big reason his turnover numbers are down, and he's had the best season of his career.
For those teams that are really poor defending the run, good news is this draft has got a lot of big body one technique dudes.
Sure does.
So if you want to swing this thing back to playing some run defense with some bigger bodies, this is a good draft for you.
Yeah, and that's been one of the trends is a big body one technique that can eat up space and allow your two safeties to be back and your linebackers to play coverage a little bit more. And last year, it created a trend where we were holding teams, you know, below the previous year's yard per attempt and also cutting out the big plays. But this is the first time it has, swung back in such a productive way here for the running game. And I don't know, is investing in running back stronger a significant key in this, or is it all coming back to the offensive line and the offense? And I also want to say, you still have to be able to create chunk plays in the passing game. You can't build the running game at the detriment of the passing game. It's got to be, very much a complementary. But a lot of these teams did invest significantly, Chief, in the running back position. I think maybe Tampa with White and Irving, 5th and 3rd rounders, is the smallest investment you would get from one of these 6 teams. How do you react to the story?
Yeah, I think the Chiefs are another team, obviously, that haven't thrown a bunch of value at the position, but like Pacheco, they're getting a fair amount out of them. The Rams have Kyren Williams. They're not throwing a bunch of money at that position to make it happen, but McVay and just a good scout's eye to know that Kyren Williams on the cheap is going to be a good player for you. The other thing, too, is all the how many quarterbacks in here now are running threats themselves. I mean, between Hurts and Daniels and Jackson and Allen, and then Mahomes has had one of the most efficient scrambling seasons of really in NFL history, with the way he's just consistently stealing first downs with his legs constantly. So the threat of that opens things up for opens stuff up for the backs as well. And of course those quarterbacks, I mean Jaden Daniels and Lamar Jackson, of course, and I mean those guys are getting a bunch of rushing yards themselves. So, but yes, you need to be well rounded. You got to be able to run the football. It's just you can't really find the quarterback later in the draft. You can usually find the running back later in the draft. So that's just something where it's just the value of the drop-off. The drop-off from the first-round running back to the fifth-round running back is nowhere close to the drop-off between the first-round quarterback and the fifth-round quarterback, or the first-round corner and the fifth-round corner, or edge rusher, or whatever. But when you're talking about running back or linebacker, just traditional off-ball linebacker, it's just the difference between the best guy and the middle rounds guy isn't usually that big.
Yeah, Kansas City did. They got burned by a first-round running back.
They did.
Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah.
That was a first round. It was the 32nd pick, but maybe that's something that they thought, okay, we tried, and now it didn't work out, so we can go and evaluate others. But, they did try. It just didn't work out for them to get going out and getting a first round back. It didn't play out for them.
So I think the Cowboys, they're in a weird spot because they have players at key positions with their offensive line that are young, and they've put in position. And the 12th overall pick doesn't give you like a generational Tyron Smith or Zach Martin opportunity that I'm aware of. So how do you try to make sure the running game is better for Dak Prescott in this offense next year, considering the resources that they have available to them? Is this doable?
Yeah, it's doable when you consider maybe Zach can address this as well. If you look at, say, you go out and you get Banks from Texas,
Sure.
Say that would be the one guy, fortify the offensive line. You could play him at guard. I think that's where he's going to be playing. We're going to talk about this draft a whole lot of these tackles. There's not a lot of consistency where you think, okay, that is a plug-and-play offensive tackle. There are questions about all these guys at the top of this board, especially in the first round, about whether these guys, have the ability to play tackle. A lot of people think they'll short-arm guys, shorter guys, maybe they have to play guard. But to me, if you want to help and you don't want to draft the running back in the first round, then Banks, I think draft him draft him and then plug him as the right guard. I think you help your team that way.
And the best thing you can do if you're an organization and there's no salary cap on coaches, you can just get exhaustive with go find a great play designer who has a wide repertoire of ways to attack you through, on the ground, and
design runs
have
and stuff.
A little bit more of a nuanced rushing attack, and that'll help you. That's one place that you could start that'll make everybody better immediately. Your current running backs, your current offensive line, your current quarterback, they can all be helped from the sideline. Unfortunately, the Cowboys don't find the value in the sideline help near as much as they probably should.
And the other frustrating part is, while there is no salary cap, they don't seem very willing to pay that coaching staff to want to do it as well. I mean, and the head coach, Mike McCarthy's not getting paid a ton. We're going to have to figure out, okay, what's that salary looking like? But you're also purging a bunch of coaches a couple of years ago. So, yeah, I agree with Brian. Like a lot of the offensive tackles this year, especially the ones you're going to talk about at 12, like Connor Lee Jr. out of Oregon, super athletic guy, right? I think there's a lot of offensive line coaches that are going to see him and be like, he's got all the traits. I can mold him into a first-round-esque offensive tackle. But there's also a lot of like, I don't know with him there as well. I mean, Simmons is the guy from Ohio State. I think I'd be willing to take there.
Absolutely, but the knee injury, of course, is something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's, I think that's a path to improvement. You draft Banks, you get better at center in year 2 with BB, absolutely. You get better with Guyton at left tackle, got a pretty big jump to make there. Or maybe you just stand in there and take Jeanty and think, dude, if this guy can go 5.2 and attempt his rookie year and we can play better defense, maybe we can find ourselves back atop the division. There's multiple ways to try to let that play out. But I think, taking Banks at 12, plugging him at right guard, and then finding your running back on day 2 or day 3, maybe to complement Rico. I like, what some of these teams were able to do with putting together like a veteran along with a young guy. I think the Packers probably spent too much on Josh Jacobs, but they got Emmanuel Wilson who ran it 100 times for 4.9 an attempt, undrafted. The Lions get Montgomery 3-18 along with Gibbs, very manageable salary that maybe Rico could be, in line for along with the rookie. That'd be fun. But I also think Chief made a good point that when your quarterback is willing to run, a lot of different guys can be highly productive. The Ravens just go get Derrick Henry and push it over the top. But, a lot of other dudes were having really good running back years along with Lamar Jackson there in the backfield.